Thank you, Daniela, for joining today's episode. I met you like a few years back at bodybuilding, where we worked together. And over the years, you have been in the corporate world for almost 10 years, I think.
Yeah, over a decade.
And that's crazy. And now you're starting your own company. So can you tell me more about your past, like in the last 10 years, what made you join the corporate world?
Yeah. How far back are we going? Are we going early life or are we
Early
jumping
life,
right
let's go early
early
life.
life? All
Yeah.
right, we're going into the archives. So yeah, grew up in upstate New York,
Mm.
surrounded by a whole lot of nature, and I think that will be relevant to the conversation that we have later in this talk. I grew up in a very rural area
Mhm.
across from a produce farm, in a very small blue collar town, as blue collared as it can get. I come from a very blue collared family as well. My parents ran a self-employed excavation business that they still run today for over 40 years together. And yeah, I mean, cliche as it sounds, very humble roots, right? I came from a very small place where you kind of dream of getting to do things that we're doing today. So it's a full circle moment to now be bringing people back into nature with some of the work that we're doing today. But from a very young age, I was uniquely interested in writing. I would sneak into my parents' office and grab a couple of yellow pads and pens and just right away in my room. That proved relevant, throughout my schooling. I leaned very much so into English, into literature, into creative writing. And then I went to college and I pursued journalism.
Mm.
I think it's important to, something else that will be relevant to our conversation later. I was a really sick kid. I was a multi-sport athlete. I played softball, basketball, I swam. I was a great student, the perfectionism, goal, but my nervous system was really dysregulated and it showed up in constant infections like bronchitis and strep throat, always getting the flu, always getting whenever it was going around, a really weakened immune system. So, as storybook as my childhood was and being surrounded by nature and having a loving family, I really did struggle with my health a lot. I was diagnosed with celiac in 2009, which prevents me from consuming gluten, actually consuming gluten. I
Wow.
know everybody likes to be gluten free,
Yeah.
but so yeah, I struggled early on in those years, in and out of doctors a lot. That kind of continued into college. I went to Hofstra University in Long Island. I
Mm.
pursued journalism for my undergrad degree. I played softball there. It's a D1 school. And I met some of my lifelong friends through that softball program. My best friend Corinne is going to be my maid of honor at my wedding this fall. So
That's
it
amazing.
was really great to gain those relationships. But again, that environment, it really kept my nervous system in a dysregulated place. It was, in a lot of ways, not really an environment that didn't really allow me to have my own autonomy. It was kind of, you do this, you go to class, you go to practice, you wake up at 5, you do weights, right? So my life really was not my own yet. So health issues kind of persisted through college. I had to get ferritin infusions, which is iron infusions, and my levels kept dropping low.
Mm.
I ended up getting 3 hip surgeries during that journey as well. So, I didn't really have the career that I would have hoped to have on the
Mm.
field because of my struggles off the field, but
Okay.
school and writing remained persistent. I really enjoyed my major. I loved journalism. I graduated with my degree there. Because of those injuries, I ended up redshirting. So that gave me an extra year of eligibility through the NCAA. I ended up not taking it. I stayed with the program. I got my master's degree with that one extra year in journalism again. So I have
Mhm.
a dual degree in journalism. But I opted not to play that fifth year. I really just became a volunteer coach with my coaching program and just gave my body the reset that I needed. And during that period, that's really where I fell in love with the gym. That's when you could find me lifting and training and sprinting and doing all the things that really helped me stay grounded through a really tough time in my life, getting through those injuries. Um, Moving into New York City from there, you cut me off pronto. We're going
Mhm.
too far, but we've now made it to New York City
Yeah.
from Long Island. So we went from upstate New York to Long Island into New York City because that's what a journalism major does, right?
Mhm.
So I moved here in 2015
To New York City.
to New York City. Yep, so we're over a decade now officially. I've got my card. I was a hard news journalist with New York One. That was my first role. Once again, it was an environment that did not support my nervous system. It was you're shooting your own content, you're editing your own content, you're writing your own scripts, you're a one-man band journalist, you're creating all of this. You're being called to, breaking news stories at 2, 3 in the morning. You have to go cover it. And then you're creating those packages that are actually going to air on the news. So it's a very fast-paced environment. It doesn't get faster than that. But for me, the passion was lacking because it was kind of just an in and out story environment. I wasn't really able to compound and build on long form storytelling. So from there, I said, hey, hard news isn't for me. How can I start to work with brands? How can I start to take everything that I've learned in journalism and multimedia storytelling and bring that in-house for brand work? So I transitioned from hard news into brand marketing and brand storytelling. I worked with brands like Spartan Race. I was one of the founding media team members over
And with
there.
Spartan Race?
Spartan Race, it's an extreme outdoor racing brand. So they do anywhere from 5Ks to full-on ultra marathons and all the distances in between. They hold over 250 global events a year, as well as domestic events on top of that. And it was a really unique opportunity. As a member of the founding media team, we were boots on the ground. We were going to Iceland. We were going to Sweden. I got to go to Greece. We had plans for Abu Dhabi, but COVID messed that up. So, to not only be able to tell stories through media, but to do them in some of these remote areas in the world, like to be able to say I shot a documentary on a mountain in Iceland, that's a pretty cool resume ad, right? So, things took a turn there. I exited that company at COVID because obviously an events business makes for a really tough time, but that was a really unique experience and met some great people there as well. From there, I worked with a couple other brands through consulting, took a brief break from fitness and wellness, but found myself right back with bodybuilding.com. That experience started as a consulting gig. I was just supposed to come in and help with their rebrand for no more than 6 months, but they knew my weakness, which is health and fitness, and they offered me a full-time role and eventually became the VP of brand and creative over there.
That's awesome. Such a great story. I feel like you moved from one place to another and everything had a part, Like, I mean, I feel like you really enjoyed fitness, health and wellness. And I feel like Spartan was such a great place for you to start, like have your shoes there. And then from there going to the bodybuilding. And in bodybuilding, how long did you work there for?
Over 5 years.
That's 6 months turned to 5 years.
6 months to 5 years.
And during those 5 years, your role, was it the same or it changed over time?
It definitely evolved. I started as a creative consultant. I came in-house and really was more so working in the creative department and with some of their talent efforts like influencer marketing. But then I eventually just worked my way up the ropes to become the VP of brand and creative. And what that entailed was I oversaw over 6 or 7 different departments. So that included organic and paid social, influencer marketing, editorial efforts, PR and communications, and all of our performance marketing efforts, as well as anything experiential that we're doing with the community. So it was a pretty big role. I had a 22-person team. I will say it's not as glamorous as you set out thinking it would be, right? Because as a creative, as we love to do. We love to sit down and actually create. And when you get to a point where you have to manage that many people, there's very little time and room for you to actually be creative. So as much of an accomplishment that is, and as good as that looks on a resume, I found myself deeply unhappy because the job became more so managing and dealing with people in politics, as anybody in corporate understands, and less about being creative.
So you stayed there for 5 years and you left bodybuilding.
Yeah. So in November of last year, November 2025, the company actually went through a pretty aggressive restructure. And I had been through 2 of those previously with the company. So this is now my 3rd restructure. And the writing was kind of on the walls that they were going to really be shaking things up. And myself, as well as a number of my colleagues, weren't going to be a part of the future journey. And I took that as a sign. We had spent all of that previous summer. So this is happening in November. We had spent the previous summer starting in May of 2025 throughout that entire summer actually starting Perfect Days. So
Yeah.
we already had the brand kit. We already had everything
So you had
made.
this already in mind.
So
Yeah.
I was just kind of biding time, right?
Yeah.
Getting the paycheck, and
Of
just
course.
paying the bills,
Yeah.
and staying with the company that I was with because, it was nice to have that consistency, right?
Yeah.
That stability.
Yeah.
But we had already built the DNA and the roots of the brand. So we said, okay, now's the time to do it.
And for people who has never heard of Perfect Days Collective, can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. We like to say we're a human evolution brand.
Mm,
We are really contributing to what we call the great unplug, right? So we want people to get off of their phones and,
mm,
connect in real life experiences. And we do that through a number of different areas. And I can kind of dive into that now. But we're a wellness experiential group,
mm,
and we organize ourselves by 4 key pillars. And those are move, think, connect, and grow. With those pillars, we sort of define not only our course and class curriculum, but we also define all of our content efforts as well.
mm,
So when you're thinking of moving your physical body, you're thinking of challenge yourself cognitively in the brain. That's the think pillar. When we say connect, we're talking about human connection because I
right.
think we're all starving for that now more than ever. And then when we say grow, that really comes down to sustainability. That can come down to contributing back to the earth, such as cleaning up a community garden like we
Mm.
just did for Earth Day, or teaching you how to live more sustainable through the clothes that you're wearing.
And what was the main reason like you thought of starting Perfect Days Collective? Was there any specific reason you feel like you need to do this?
Yeah, I think like a lot of us, we felt that shift that occurred in a post-COVID world.
Mm,
I think a lot of people were feeling lonely. I think a lot of people were missing community. And community, again, can sound like a really cliche word,
yeah.
right? Every big brand out there is like, we're a community,
Okay.
but what are you actually doing to build
Right.
grassroots community, right? There are some brands who are doing it well, and there are some brands who are kind of just throwing that word into the mix because they know they need to.
Yeah.
We really do want to connect with people, and we want to create connections for people. And we want to do that in nature. We want to do that in environments that really can bring their nervous systems to a more regulated and safe space. A lot of us, especially in New York City, we are living in dysregulation. We are
Yeah.
living in constant fight or flight mode.
Mhm.
So if we can, one, teach people how to get themselves out of that fight or flight mode, and then two, create meaningful connections along the way, those are 2 key goals for us.
Right.
Mm,
I mean, when you say community, I've been in New York for almost 12, I think, 12
mhm,
years. I've struggled to find a community, I feel like. I mean, for me, I love health and wellness. I love fitness. I
mhm,
always try to be under that community,
mhm,
but I'm still trying to find something where it connects all the dots.
mhm,
And I don't know why I have a feeling Perfect X Collective is something which brings everything together.
mhm,
And so it's already so you're it's already in the books, right? So what's the plan for the future?
mhm.
Like how do you take it to the next level?
Sure, yeah. I mean, where we were last summer in the summer of 25, we were sitting in my apartment in Queens, and I was actually using dry erase markers because my cabinets allowed for that. And sorry to my landlord, but it scrubbed right off. So I was sitting with Gabe and Ken, my co-founders, and we were saying, okay, how do we want people to feel when they experience our brand? Okay, we're writing that down.
Mm,
And who are we looking to serve? Okay, let's write down some key demographics. And so we really, when I say we built the DNA, we really were thoughtful about this, right? Of who we want to set out to help. And
right.
when we thought about who we want to help, three distinct groups of people came to mind. And one, it's the 35 to 55 demographic for a lot of different reasons, right?
Wow.
Those are the folks who can allow themselves a little bit more time to pursue, some health and wellness goals that maybe they couldn't do in their 20s because they're just trying to make ends meet and
Right.
find their people and find their place in the world.
Hmm.
It's also folks who have families.
Mm,
And when you have a family, you're that much more motivated to stay healthy.
yeah.
Data shows this. When you have a spouse, when you have kids, that motivation just 10x's because you're not only living for yourself, but you're living for these people.
Right.
So that's a unique core demo for us. Our second demographic is usually catches people off guard. It's 55 plus.
Wow.
We feel really passionate about helping 55 plus, and I'll even dare say 70 plus, because I
Mm,
think we have an epidemic in this country where our elderly are severely underserved in a lot of different areas, especially the services that we offer. So we really I want to make it a goal to work with our senior members of the community to teach them system regulation, to keep them strong, right? To keep muscle mass on, because when you age, two things can happen. You're going to either decline cognitively, or you're going to decline in terms of muscle mass and your physical abilities. So we want to make sure that those folks learn how to maintain independence so that they can stay living, on their own and independently until late life. Our third demographic is, the 35 and under. For us, I feel like a lot of brands are competing for that kind of low millennial, Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha. We don't feel necessarily compelled to compete for that demographic. I think they are already a really smart group of folks who know that these are the things they need to be doing. So if they find us, which I hope they do, they're welcome in the community. And we want to serve them as well. You asked me where we're going next. So right now we are just focusing on community events for the time being. Yeah, in terms of the services that we offer residential amenity programming. So a lot of spaces in New York City have gyms now, especially these newer buildings. They're getting, more elaborate as they build. But they're not injecting programming, they're not injecting intentionality into the spaces and giving their tenants some thought out programming. And they're not keeping wellness in mind in terms of recovery, in terms of nervous system, breath work, meditation, sound, all of these modalities that we really specialize in. It's just, here's your barbell. Here's a couple bikes and a treadmill. Have at it.
Yeah.
By the way, pay us $150 to $200 more each month for access to this amenity. So we're hoping to increase, the experience for tenants and in turn the residential groups.
I love that.
Secondarily, we work with workplace wellness or corporate groups. So same thing, we can come in and do standard programming for your employees. We can do leadership development for your executive team. And if you really want to go for it, we can hold some offsite retreats as well. So that's kind of bucket number 2. Bucket number 3 is gym and third space design and wellness space design. Whether you are looking to increase the value of your current space just by reimagining it or starting from scratch. Myself and the guys have plenty of experience doing that and specializing in that area. But community events, they're not a moneymaker. And we never set out for community events to be a moneymaker. We want them to be very accessible to the community.
Right.
So we just wrapped up our spring series. It was 6 events in 6 weeks. It was a sprint for sure. But we kind of wanted to just rip the Band-Aid off and just kind of test things out, see what people liked, what they didn't like, what we did well, what we maybe didn't do well, and where we had to improve. And now we're gearing up to debut our summer series starting in late June to kick off summer, and that will run all the way through late September.
And it's all gonna be community based, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we're doing a field day. Where Natalia and Gabe are going to be our camp counselors for the day, and it's going to be here in Brooklyn, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. We want to be known as the neighborhood friend.
I
We
love
want
that.
to be playful. We
Yeah.
want to be approachable. We want to be inclusive. We are not trying to be a luxurious wellness brand. I think we have enough of those. We just want to be rooted down to earth neighborhood friends.
Yeah. You mentioned the word loneliness. I feel like in New York, mainly in the US, I feel there's a lot of loneliness. A lot of people on their phone, social media, things like that. What do you think of that? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. One of our coaches, Rachel Mariotti, in one of our earlier meetings at the start of this year in January 26, she said something really interesting. She said, "We live in high-rise buildings with hundreds of people, but you don't even know the person across the hall." And it's so true. It's so what happened to the days of, this is predating our existence even, of like asking your neighbor for sugar. That's never even been a thing in our lifetime, right? So,
Right.
but we know at one point that was a thing. So where did that go? Why did that disappear? So, it's really interesting to me that we're in a city with over 8 million people on a daily basis, yet our mental health is some of the worst. And
Yeah.
some of that can be argued. We need more green space, right? We have gorgeous green spaces in New York City. Do we need more of them? Yes. Do we need to immerse ourselves in the trees more? Yes, right? So I think it's a mix of not having enough nature in our life here in an urban setting,
Yeah.
and also not having your people, right? For as many people as there are around, that actually makes it even harder to find your people.
I've always struggled, to be honest, because when I came to the US in 2014, 2015, I had a culture shock.
Mhm.
And being an immigrant, it's very difficult to really adjust to New York City.
Yeah.
I know what I mean. But obviously, like when I put myself into environments like gyms and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I just felt like I met my people over there. And I feel like it's important for us to find that community or find a group of people
Mhm.
where it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, bonding over shared goals and common goals is a huge way to find your people, especially in the fitness community is really unique because it's like, wow, look how much this person cares about their health, right?
Right.
About making themselves healthy. That right there is a conversation starter, right?
Yeah.
Like we always say like your body's your resume, which is true in a lot of ways, right? Like you can immediately look at someone and say, this person's trying really hard to take care of themselves and they're succeeding. Like we already have a common goal. So I think that's what's so great about the fitness community. I think we've swung too far in terms of the aesthetics and
Yeah.
you're seeing looks maxing everywhere, right? All over the internet. Unfortunately that's the Hollywood effect of the United States, right? We like to look good sometimes more than we like to feel good. But I
Yeah.
think again, I'm going to say this is another shift that happened in a post-COVID world. We're now striving to feel good and by striving to feel good and making ourselves feel good, well, we're going to look good too. Because if I'm feeding myself with good food, if I'm regulating my nervous system, if I'm taking care of myself, that's going to come out, that's going to shine through from the
Mm.
inside out.
Yeah, I agree with you. So you spent 10 years in the corporate world,
Mhm.
and now last year you put all your effort into Perfect Days Collective. So what are some changes have you seen from past to now? Because in previously you're working for someone else and now you're working for yourself. But also at the same time, I know being an entrepreneur is not that easy. It's really, really tough. You're probably putting more hours. It's a lot of pressure, you know what I mean? A
Mhm.
lot of uncertainty because to be successful, like to start something new and to be very successful, it really takes a lot of effort and time
Mhm.
and discipline. So what's your say on that?
Sure. Yeah, I think anybody who says if you quit corporate to go into entrepreneurship just for freedom, I mean that's it's not that easy,
No.
unfortunately, because you're not necessarily free. You're free to dictate your own time.
Right.
You're free to make your own decisions. You're free in terms of managing your own schedule,
Mm,
which goes a long way in entrepreneurship, as you know, right? I'm no longer kind of tied to my calendar and rushing back to my desk for, my eighth Zoom call of the day,
right.
and my time is of my own. And
Yeah.
because my time is my own, that's allowed me to become healthier.
Hmm.
And when I'm in a healthier place, I'm more creative, I'm more focused, I'm more centered, and I'm able to give more effort to this thing that I actually care about. And it's not to say, sorry to my old bosses, it's not to say I didn't care, but Gary, and I'm going to reference Gary Vee here for a second. He's always touting this. He's always saying you cannot expect your employees to care as much as you care as a founder, right? Because we're constantly seeing CEOs and founders, is when they get to this growth stage where they have, 100 plus employees and they're saying, I don't understand. This person doesn't want to work on a Saturday. Of course not. They're making 55,000 a year. Like let them log off on a Friday
Right.
afternoon. So I mean, for me, I've gained a lot of my independence back, which in turn translates directly into an increase in my own health, which has been wonderful. But I think also when you have a purpose that you're working for and towards, you'll stay up until 9 o'clock at night on the computer.
Yeah.
Gabe and Ken have been sleeping and I'm up on my computer just so what do you guys think of this? Right. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the DNA of founders, right? Like we have to be obsessed with what we're doing. Otherwise, I don't think we stand a chance in hell succeeding. So, I think more purposeful work, is really what fuels the journey in being an entrepreneur.
Right. And you mentioned Gabe and Ken, and they're the two co-founders, right?
Hmm.
So Do you think it's possible to start something on your own, or you need a team of people?
Oh gosh, I need those guys. Funny story. This brand actually started in a hypno breathwork session.
Wow.
In May of 2025, I was in a group hypno breathwork session, and it was about halfway through, and the instructor was kind of just guiding us to envision, what we want to be doing, what we're unhappy with, etc. And I was like, I hate my job. I hate my job.
This was
Like
which year?
May of 25
Okay, fuck.
last year. And I said, I don't like what I'm doing. Um, you know, there's no purpose in it. All they really care about is margin and top dollar and revenue, right?
Yeah.
And it's in health and wellness, but it's not good enough because they don't actually care about making people well. And I said, we have to start something on our own. I don't know what it is. I don't know how we're going to organize it, but we have to do it. And on the bike ride home from that session, I called Gabe Snow. And I've known Gabe Snow for, gosh, since 2019 now.
Mm,
I originally recruited Gabe over at Spartan Race to build a fitness app. And then when I had to do it again at bodybuilding.com, I called him again. And now this time, third time I was calling him, I was like, hey, will you be my business partner? And it was
well,
the fastest yes ever.
yeah.
And then when I got home to Ken, I said, I'm ready to start my own thing. He said yes. And, like I said, we spent the rest of that summer, like mad scientists,
Yeah.
in the kitchen, just kind of building this thing. Gabe is like my emotional support human. He is such an incredible person. He's our mass connector.
Mm,
I cannot walk down the streets in Brooklyn with that guy without somebody on a city bike or somebody on the sidewalk saying, hey, Gabe. So he's been really instrumental in kind of bringing the people together, bringing our coaches together, talent recruitment,
mm.
all of it. And then Ken does the math. So we can't do it without Ken, but in all seriousness, Ken handles so many of the logistics.
Mm,
He is also a lawyer. So, he was filing the trademarks, he was setting the business up, by the
mm.
books. So, right out of the gate, we were doing things right. So, yeah, I mean, could I have done it? Sure. I think I could have done it. Could I have done it as quickly and as strongly as I did without
Yeah.
those two? No shot.
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing is you had a why,
Hmm.
and that was the driving factor with why you really want to start this. It's crazy. Like last year, you just had this thought in your head. Now it's happening.
Yeah.
That's really fast. I feel like it's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year. I'll credit my corporate work there. I spent a lot of the time in corporate building brand books and
Yeah.
building voice guides and building brand kits, of what it means to show up. I've for my past companies, not only the ones that I referenced, but in my consulting work, I've helped them build out, what's your hierarchy in terms of typography and colors, what's your brand voice, what's your mission statement, what's your tagline, okay, what are your demographics? So I've done this multiple times. So it really was kind of a copy and paste, but now just for a completely new brand that we were concepting
Yeah.
ourselves.
What are the like three advice would you give to someone who wants to build their own brand? Like the first three thing you gotta ask, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for anybody wanting to go into entrepreneurship or start their own brand, I think first and foremost, have a purpose,
Mm,
right? Have your purpose, have your passion. You have to be all in. Like I said, you have to be so obsessed with it. If you're not obsessed with it, I really don't see a point in starting. And that some people may label that as toxic and unhealthy, but I think it's so true.
mm,
Number two, surround yourself with the right people right from day one. Understand who you're choosing as your business partners. If you are choosing a partner up front or just those that you're working with, find people that you can trust.
mm.
Find people that are going to get down and scrappy with you, right? You're not going to be able to hire the people that are top dollar right now. So find the people who can give you the discounts, who can give you the friend discounts, who can do you a solid because they too believe in the brand. So surround yourself with good people. And number three, just always put the community first. No matter what industry you're in, if you have customers, if you have community members, you have to put them first. From day one, you have to gather feedback from them. You have to understand what pain points you were solving for them, because it's one thing for you to say, I want to do this thing, but what pain point are you actually solving? You have to ask yourself, what issue, what problem is my brand or my service or my product going to solve? And if you don't have that, you really don't have a business. You have to understand what service or product or value is going to provide to your community to solve a pain point that's a part of their everyday life.
And now, when it comes to the money part, I feel like a lot of times I have worked with people that have always put the money first and the product, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're a capitalistic driven country,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Would I like to start a commune tomorrow and burn it all to the ground? Yes. So if you'd like to join me, just call me up. I listen, I think we're all trying to make a buck. But I think, can you just create a supplement product now, white label it and fill it with the most proprietary blends, Sure. Again, if you have really good branding and marketing, you can be valued at $1 billion in this country with a
Yeah.
really mediocre product. We're seeing that in the supplement market right now.
Yeah.
But I do think consumers have gotten smarter. And I do think we're at a pivot point where you can't get away with having a mediocre product or service nowadays with the consumers expecting more, especially in health and wellness. So, listen, everybody at the end of the day has revenue goals, but I really do believe if you're a mission driven brand, you'll hit some of those monetary goals in the end. It just might take a little longer if
Uh,
you're doing it the right way.
but I feel like in the US, if you're like have just two things, you can make a lot of money. If you, it's like how can you make money, and number two is how can you like reduce weight?
Hmm.
Like those things, I
Yeah.
feel like it tells a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like people want the easy way out, but I guess that's probably not really the right thing. But that's marketing.
Yeah.
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 Speaking on that, like what makes a meaningful life today for you?
Sure. Um,
Because you have been the corporate world, now you're doing your own thing.
yeah.
I feel like I feel like that right now in this current present moment, you're really aligned with the stuff you want to accomplish
Hmm.
going forward. So what's that meaningful life today?
Yeah. I mean, a meaningful life for me personally, you know, autonomy to kind of, live life on the daily, in the rhythm that I require. Not living by other people's calendars is really a huge win for me right now. Being able to wake up when my body wants to wake up rather than, getting up when an alarm wakes me up. So just allowing my body to naturally wake up, getting some sort of movement in every single day, whether the intensity is high or low, but we're moving our body.
Yeah.
Getting myself some sun if it's here in New York. We had a pretty low lit season this year, but
Yeah.
getting some sun, walking my dog, just tending to the things that I really, find worth nourishing,
Right.
and surrounding myself with my people. I think another really unique aspect of my life that's brought me to finding perfect days and becoming who I am today is traveling. Traveling expanded me as a human in more ways than I will ever be able to describe. And I started really traveling heavily back in 2018. I've been to Iceland and Spain a couple of times, and Peru. I hiked the Salcantay Trail to Machu Picchu. Hiked Mount Whitney last year, and in California, just really unique experiences, unique discoveries of cultures, ways of life that I otherwise would have never had, any exposure to. And I think the more you travel and the more you see how people around the world live their lives, you say, oh, I think that's really great. Okay, that's awesome. Great.
Mhm.
Okay, I went up to Norway and went up to the Scandinavians. Okay, great. I really love what they're doing with their sauna culture up there.
Right.
How do I start to inject that in my life at home? So I think the souvenirs that you pick up along the way, come home and you inject that into your nutrition and the stuff that I'm eating. I inject that into, some of the wellness routines that I'm
Mm.
doing. And I think you start to build a really unique life for yourself. So I think, maybe if that could be a piece of advice, if you can travel, whether you're doing it through hostels and backpacking, if you're just getting out of college or if you're taking a gap year, whatever it may be, like I think if you can travel as much as humanly possible throughout your 20s, I think that can really set you up nicely for going after what you want in your 30s.
Wow, love that. I haven't traveled much, but it's on my bucket list.
For sure.
But to the viewers who are watching and who are probably working corporate and they feel the same like you said before,
Mm,
like, and like, what do you tell them if they want to quit? But it's like once you have a family, once you have like rent to pay, I mean,
yeah.
expenses, you're like stuck in that box. Like, you have to keep up the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, anybody who's answered to somebody in a miserable job, whenever they say quit, I'm like, "It's really not that black and white." Like, I didn't even do it for myself. Like, the company I was with did it for me, right? Like, I didn't say I didn't stand up one day and say,
Like,
"I
that was the
quit and
best
I'm
thing.
starting perfect days." That's not how it happens. Like, I was loving the consistency of a paycheck every 2 weeks. So,
Yeah.
I didn't even do that. So, I don't think it's cut and dry as just quitting. And again, if you don't have a family, if you don't have a lot of financial obligations, right? This is a time in your life where you can, then yeah, quit. Like, quit your job and go do what you want to be doing. But some of the ways where you can align it, which worked for me, I was deeply unhappy, but I said, hey, as long as I'm health and wellness, right? So that was kind of
Mm,
if you can sort of align that with more of a purpose of like, okay, at least I'm waking up each day and I'm sort of contributing to this industry, right? That's kind of one step. That's not the final step, but it's one step. So how do I align my values in the work that I'm doing every day? Because I think we all need to work. I think humans, in a way, need
yeah.
to work. I don't think we need to work 40 plus hours every week,
Yeah.
right? That's a different discussion for a different time. But I think we like to work,
Mm,
right? But obviously, we're going to like to work when it's aligned with something we feel very passionately about. So, you don't have to quit your job, but if you can somehow transition into an industry that you really find meaningful
yeah.
and something that you enjoy contributing to, I think that's a really good first step.
Yeah. Are you spiritual?
Yeah.
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 Because I feel like we live in a materialistic world
Mhm.
where it's horizontal, it's all materialistic. There is no end to it.
Yeah.
You make millions, you don't want to make billions, and the number goes on. But vertically, it's being spiritual, connecting with God or the higher power. And once you have that, I feel like
Yeah.
that aligns, keeps you aligned.
Yeah, I was raised Roman Catholic. It wasn't necessarily a religion I aligned with, and as I moved into my 20s, I started to find myself more closely aligned with Buddhism, and ultimately, the greatest spirit and kind of God that I believe in is Mama Earth. I mean, I do believe that we are indebted to this planet that we live on. And I think if we all just approached, our daily life with a little more care of our environment and the people that inhabit it,
Yeah.
this world would be a kinder place. In terms of materialism, I've been there. I like as somebody who's raised in, like I said, a very rural blue collar, town, it's very easy to say, I want to grow up and own that car and, I'm going to get this job and
Yeah.
one day I'm going to have a coat like that. Right. And I was definitely in that when I first moved to New York City as well. Like I moved to New York City. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I
Yeah.
have to go shopping. I have every paycheck was going to new clothes. Right. I lived it. I did. But like I said, I think between traveling and, just grounding yourself in spirituality, helps you understand really what is important and what is that for me. And that's my health first and foremost, because if I'm not healthy, I can't show up for anybody in my life. Right. And I
Right.
want to live a long and healthy life. So I take care of myself first and foremost. And then two, just finding I'm going to keep hammering this multiple times in this conversation, but just finding the right people. Right. I think it comes down to the right people in your life, taking care of your body, and just having some fun. I don't
Yeah.
think we have enough fun anymore.
That's true. I feel like the right people really makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like mindset, and yeah, especially in New York, I feel there's so many great people out there.
Mhm.
Just have to meet the right people
There's good people everywhere, and
everywhere.
that's what I
Yeah.
think we've lost sight of. That can actually go into the social media conversation, is that we're not programmed to physically consume everything that we see on our screen on a daily basis. So, as much as social media and just the internet as a whole has helped us connect with millions of people around the world and help us see things that we would never see in our lifetime, that's the incredible part.
Yeah.
The not so incredible part is when we're getting hit with an onslaught of negativity and really things that our brains can't even process, right? So, there's good people everywhere. The world is inherently good. People are inherently good. Unfortunately, the bad is always louder, right? Think
Yeah.
about when you see a review on a product that you're thinking about buying, right? And you're like, let me check out the reviews. And there's all these 5-star reviews, but what do you think about the most? It's that one
One.
star review.
Yeah.
And same thing, my CEOs, when we would put out a product or, whether digital or, a physical good, the CEO the next day was like, well, did you see this 1-star review? And I'm like, but did you see the 1,700 5-star reviews? So
Mm.
the no's and the negatives are always going to be the loudest voice in the room, but we have to remember that the good will always outweigh.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. And based on your like now, I feel like you are living a life, very intentional life.
Mhm.
Like, what are some challenges you have had being your own, being an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
starting your own Perfect Days collective? Like, I'm sure you have faced some challenges.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
name?
daily. I mean, I have multiple autoimmune conditions, so I think for me, not knowing when to step on the brake. I step on the brake a little too late, and I run myself ragged a lot,
Okay.
because I'm so obsessed with what I do and because
Yeah.
I enjoy doing what I do so much. I need to create more intentional rest for myself, and I've gotten better at it. But yeah, I think for me, especially as someone who has some of those conditions, my body can't necessarily go on full blast. It
Yeah.
can't keep up with even some of the people in my life. And when I try to do that, I find myself really run down. So I think pacing is going to be something that, as we continue this journey, that's going to be something that I need to consistently improve on. Is just
Mhm.
pacing myself, outsourcing what I need done, whether that's to my co-founders or some of the coaches or whoever it is that we're working with.
Mhm.
I trust them infinitely. So why am I not outsourcing some of these
Right.
things more, right? And sharing the stress, and then not allowing it to seem stressful, because the second I associate stress with this, I'm no longer going to be having fun anymore. So the whole point of starting this brand was to alleviate stress for others. It shouldn't be creating stress for me. And I'm not naive enough to think that stress won't come.
Yeah.
Stress, and this goes back to Buddhism too, like suffering is inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Where stress is a part of life.
Like,
It's ingrained in us. Like we should have these periods of stress. It's the chronic stress is where we don't want to live. And when I was in corporate, I was living in chronic stress. So I can make do with these bursts of short-term stress, so long as that doesn't become chronic again.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I speaking on that, I feel like I'm also in the same boat.
Mm.
I have felt burnout a lot of times the
Mhm.
last few years because I cannot stop.
Yeah.
And also living in a place like New York, I don't know, it just keeps you going. And I feel like sometimes it's good to take a pause. But whenever I take a pause, I feel like I just have to keep going. Have you ever felt like that in
Yeah,
New
I
York?
mean, hustle culture is real. I'm on Zillow, like looking at places in California and Costa Rica. I'm like, I just gotta get out of here. Yeah, no, I mean, New York City is the most motivational and inspirational place that you could possibly live, but
Yeah.
it's also super unhealthy with how hard we go.
Yeah.
Like, we do not know how to rest. And I think it's been a challenge to myself to say it would be the easy thing to move to somewhere like LA or Costa Rica. And I say those two places because, those were big inspirations for why we created Perfect Days. But, to create the self-discipline and to be able to create the ability for yourself to remove yourself from the hustle and bustle, to downregulate your nervous system, if you can create those tools and implement them while living in this city, I mean, you've got it. Like, you've got it down. If I know how to use my breath in a really stressful situation in the subway,
Mm.
or when I'm on my bike and somebody cuts me off and almost sends me into the curb, right? If I know how to recenter myself after those situations, then why am I stressing about this thing happening on the computer?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, you have been practicing meditation, I guess.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and how often do you do that? Like,
Yeah, if I said daily, I'd be lying, so I won't say daily. Meditation's been a really one of the harder things for me to, I won't even say master because I have not mastered it. I think breath work, it was my introduction to it, and
mm,
just learning more so about how breath impacts my mood, how it impacts my reactions, and how I can if I can gain control of my breath, I can essentially gain control of how I'm reacting to that situation. My breath is not going to help me gain control of that situation, because a lot of the times we become dysregulated in situations that we, in fact, do not have control of. Turbulence on an airplane, sitting in traffic, stuck in a subway tunnel under the water. And then you think water's going to come
yeah.
into the tunnel, right? It's all of our fear on the 7 train. But once I started to learn more through the breath, whether that's Avi Greenberg and others that I've experienced breath workshops with, the more I've started to implement that, then I was able to actually start to drop into meditative states. And another modality that also helped me drop into meditative states was contrast training, so hot cold therapy.
Yeah.
I go to a Japanese hot house here in Williamsburg and sit in a 200-degree sauna for 15 minutes, dunk yourself in cold, do that around 3 times. And it's better than any drug that you can do.
That's
So
awesome.
I think understanding first and foremost what can help bridge you between, a heightened state and getting yourself into a place where you can even think about starting meditation
Mm.
and then actually dropping into the meditation. That's what helped me.
And how can people look for the event, for the summer event, for Perfect Days Collective?
Sure. You can go to our website at perfectdayscollective.com or follow along on Instagram at Perfect Days Collective.
Mhm.
We'll be dropping over 10 summer series event here. We're going to be doing things like hikes up
Wow,
in Beacon, New York. Like I said, we're going to do a field day, a pottery class. We're partnering with a car shop to do an ambient sound experience. So just, I think the spring series was kind of a trial run for us. We played it a little safe. We kind of just introduced some of these modalities that we have. But I think the summer series, you're going to find some really unique collaborations with our local neighborhood here in Williamsburg.
well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of fun things lined up.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
thank you so much for giving us your time, and can't wait to see where Perfect Days Collective goes in the next few years.
Yeah.
But I'm very confident and very positive. It's going to do a lot of great things because I have been part of it. Have been in few events, and I can feel the energy, the love you guys have towards the brand you guys are building.
Thanks so
So
much,
thank you
Pronto.
once again.
Thanks, Pronto. We
Pleasure.
appreciate you.